Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdul Rafay and my group member is Mohsin Imran. So we are going to present our topic, which is verification and validation in software quality assurance. First of all, let me give you a brief what we have written. We have read around 7 or 8 research papers regarding our topic. So what we have extrapolated in our research article is briefly described in this presentation. This is a paper which we have written. So first of all, let me start with the abstract which we have written. This, this article, we have talked about verification and validation in software quality assurance. This article highlights the multiple definition of verification and validation, and the major difference is also discussed. According to the Sdlc, verification and validation is briefly described. And in the later part, the hardware and software development perspective of verification and validation is also discussed. In the introduction, so the introduction of our article which we have written is, as we all know, in the era of 21st century, the world is moving towards the information technology with a very fast pace. Websites, applications, and softwares are as important for human beings such as water. As the demand for software is increasing day by day, the main task is to ensure the quality of the softwares according to the software quality assurance. So here the terminology verification and validation goes side by side along with the development process of software. In the process of verification and validation, there are multiple steps to be followed to ensure the quality in the software. Steps involved in verification are business requirement specifications, which is BRS, system requirement specification, SRS, high level design, HLD, low level design, LLD, and coding. And the steps involved in validation are also listed: unit testing, component testing, system integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. There are multiple definitions of verification and validation. First, we are going to, I'm going to tell you from the perspective of IEEE 1012 2012, IEEE Computer Society 2012. According to IEEE, verification has been defined as the procedure to evaluate component or system for assessing it if the product related to certain stage satisfying the conditions and the phases start. Validation has been defined as the process to evaluate component or system at the end or throughout development process for determining if it is satisfying certain requirements. And now, according to ISO, there are also many definitions related to verification and validation of the system. So validation, it can be defined as the set of activities guaranteeing that the systems has the ability of accomplishing its objectives, goals, as well as intended use. And ISO definition for verification is, it can be defined as a set of activities which compare products related to the life cycle of the system against needed characteristics of the products. This might involve, yet isn't restricted to, certain requirements, design description in addition to the system itself. Some more definitions from the ISO perspective is, verification is the process of checking that the software meets the specifications, which is, did I build what I need? And for validation, it is the process of checking whether the specification captures the customer's need, which is, did I build what I said I would? Now, moving further, according to INCOS, which is International Council on Systems Engineering, a software engineering handbook version 4, verification is defined as the set of activities comparing system element a system against the needed characteristics. And validation is, it can be defined as a set of activities guaranteeing that the system has the ability for accomplishing its objective, goals, as well as intended use, which is meeting the requirements of stakeholders. Now, while moving further, I'm going to shift toward Mohsin Imran, and he's going to explain what is verification and validation in Sdlc.
So hi, here we are going to discuss V&V in Sdlc. So first of all, I'm going to discuss this diagram, the V model of the verification and validation model. So in this model, as we can see, the whole scenario, as Rafay also shows, the characteristics and the features we require in verification and validation. So first of all, there is verification phase. Verification phase, first of all, we discuss the business requirement specification. So this business requirement specification goes side by side with acceptance testing. Next phase is SRS, that is very well known system requirement specification, which goes side by side with software system testing or software testing. Then a high level design, and then low level design, and then coding. These all process go side by side with the unit testing, and this ensures the quality of our software. So verification and validation is sometimes mostly people refer that verification and validation is just a waste of time, but it's not actually. The reason is that verification and validation takes some time, but in the at the end of the project, we find some defects that are also that are countered in the past. So in this scenario, in this phase, we will check that the verification and validation, instead of wasting time, it's not a waste of time. So as here discussed, verification and validation of software development lifecycle will be presented in this section. Also the approaches utilized, like there are some of the approaches, and the who are the characters that are following those approaches. All will be discussed here. In the next slide, we are going to discuss the life cycle of a software. So here are some of the key features of, there are many other things included in these requirement design and construction operation maintenance, but the major of the components of the life cycle stages are here, like requirement, then design, then construction, and then operation and maintenance. So in every stage, either it is requirement design, construction, operation, maintenance, to verification goes side by side. As the definition shows, it goes along with the project. And what is very at the end of the our project, we are going to approach the validation phase. So like here, the determine adequacy of requirements, it means verification of all the requirements. Either the requirement gathering is done specifically and precisely. Then the design is the design related to the or the prototype made by the software programmers is according to the project. And then the construction of means here, like coding of the software is done accordingly. So in each and every phase, verification and validation plays a role. Verification and validation at the end of a project reduces the cost instead of increasing the time or resources. Verification and validation, we can say that it reduces the cost. How? Reason is that if a software engineer does any kind of work, and there is any kind of defect in its work, and we are not following the verification or validation phase, then at the end of the project there will be several issues that can be severe, or their impact will meet the software project to the failure. So verification and validation plays role here and ensures the quality. In the next slide, we are going to discuss the key differences between verification and validation, as these are two different definitions, verification and validation, as discussed by Rafay Shahwaiz. So in a verification process, we check the documents, as I've discussed in Sdlc, like documents, design, code, programs, all the Sdlc phases. Validation process include testing, validation of actual product. Verification does not involve code execution, while validation involves code execution. So here is the key difference, that verification is just an overview of the code execution. So it does not involve execution. And then we have a review, walkthrough, inspection, test checking, These are all terminologies related to verification. But in validation, as we have discussed, it includes code. So we test it accordingly. Like the very well-known testing procedures are box testing, white box testing, black box testing, and gray box testing, and other non-functional testing. There are 18 of them. So here are more some of the verification validation differences. Some of them include the checking of document design program. It does not involve code execution while validation. Some more key features, we have verification finds the bugs early in the development cycle. So as we go as along with the project, as we take the project with verification phase parallelly, so we can find defects and we can resolve that defects on time. Then we have the comparing validation and verification in software testing. Verification process targets on software architecture design database, while validation process targets the actual software product. Then we have verification is done by the quality assurance team. That's the key role of quality assurance. While validation is done by the involvement of testing team with quality assurance. They go side by side. Comparing verification versus validation, we have one more key feature, that is verification process comes before validation, and on the other hand, validation process come after the verification. Then in the next slide, we are going to discuss the verification, how verification and validation play its role in hardware and software development. So as discussed in many classes, the hardware system here is related to the embedded system developed by an engineer. And the embedded system is very costly. And if we does not follow the phases or approaches of verification and validation, it will meet a heavy failure. As hardware is and so as with the software development, but verification validation are the two branches of software testing. They are complementary to each other and not substitutes of each other. So we can follow verification and validation, but we are not able here to only follow verification phase and doesn't follow the validation phase. So we have to follow both. And verification and validation shows the system complies with an organization standard and processes. Relying on review or non-executable methods, validation physically ensures that the system operates according to plan. By executing the system functions through a series of tests that can be observed and evaluated. Then at the end, there's a conclusion of a whole project, and that will be followed by Rafay Shahwaiz. Over to you, Rafay Shahwaiz.
Thank you, Mohsin Imran. So here we are. The conclusion of our whole article is the software verification and validation has a significant role during the process of the development of the software, as we talked earlier, which is these are two different categories, two different names, which shows two different definitions. These are totally different things. The tasks which are carried out by the verification and validation software are requirement analysis, structure review, requirement tracing, code inspections, design review, and validation testing. Although the V&V is costly, it is efficient and guarantees a product of high quality from the mission critical applications, such as missile software. This article has argued that verification and validation are essential part of the system development lifecycle because they offer the only way to judge the quality and success of software. Verification and validation makes it sure that certain rules are followed at the time of development of a software product and make it sure that the product that is developed fulfills the required specification. The final assumption may be made in concern to the general verification and validation concepts, as the system engineering best practices, tools, and verification validation activities require being performed continuously during the life cycles of the system development. Initially, the focus has been made on the needs. After that, the focus has been shifted to design the ultimately to the verification and validation of the system. So that's all for our article which we have written. Now moving towards the poster, which is a optional part, but we have done it. So we have make a poster. The main topic to present a poster is verification validation according to its certifications. So here is a poster, as you can see. Moving over to the presentation, our poster includes the main abstract or conclusion which I'm going to tell you about our poster is, in the development of an embedded system, it is important to be able to determine if the system meets specifications and if its output are correct. This is the process of verification and validation, and its planning must start early in the development lifecycle, because it is the most important part for any software, as we have discussed earlier. It is related to the our topic which we have researched about and written the article and research paper about that. Both aspects are necessary, as a system meeting its specification does not necessarily mean it is technically correct, and vice versa. There are many different verification and validation techniques which are applicable at different stages of the development life cycle. The results of V&V forms an important component in the safety cause. In the safety case, which is a document used to support certification. Certification, as we talk about, we are going to focus on the certifications in this poster. Certification is usually pursued due to either legal reasons or economic advantages. The certification process also starts from the beginning of the life cycle and requires cooperation between the developer and the regulatory agency from the very start. Through verification and validation does not prove that the system is safe or dependable, and there is always a limit to how much testing is enough testing. In addition, certification does not prove that a system is correct. So it does not eliminate the developer's legal and moral obligations. Therefore, extreme care should be taken in the development of the embedded system to make sure that the right amount of time is spent on verification and validation, and also that certification not be used to prove that a system is correct. Therefore, this is all about our poster, and we are concluding now. So thank you so much.